Welcome. Proposed agenda for Kitty Hawk Town Council, January 6, 2014. The meeting is now open, Kitty Hawk Town Hall at 6 p.m. I'm calling to order. Would you join us in a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank the brave souls that came out. I hope you're not too cold before you get home tonight. All right. I'm going to call for approval of agenda. Is there anything that needs to be pulled from the agenda? Any changes?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We'll go into public comment. Lynn, has anyone signed up for public comment?
No one has signed up.
Does anyone wish to speak at public comment? Let the record show no one came forward. And now we have a consent agenda.
I'd like to remove an item from the consent agenda, item 5F, please.
Anyone else? Do I hear a motion to that effect?
Move to approve the consent agenda with the elimination of item 5F.
Second.
All right. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, we pulled 5F.
I requested the removal of 5F because I'd like to publicly thank the Sailor Construction and Development Company who presented the town with a $1,500 grant, donation for the police department in memory of Dewey Park, their construction superintendent. The donation is designated to purchase automated external defibrillators for the police officers to place in their patrol cars. We'd like to extend our thanks for this generous donation, which provides a valuable life-saving capability to the people of Kitty Hawk. Thank you.
All right, any questions?
I move to approve the acceptance of the donation from the Sailor Corporation.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, now we have two public hearings, and I'd like to carry these out one at a time so that we don't get confused on what we're doing. So the first public hearing has to do with the zoning amendment, and it's an application to rezone all or portions of 7 parcels associated with the Shoreside Center, and it's to clarify and correct the official zoning map. Do I hear a motion to go into public hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, Joe, would you give us an update? And then we'll ask for anyone that wishes to speak.
Right. Thank you, Mayor Perry, members of council, members of the public in attendance. Let me just zoom in and clarify this. As Mayor Perry outlined, this evening we're considering a zoning amendment, a zoning map amendment to split zone properties at 5400, 5406, 5416, 5424, 5430, and 5440 North Croatan Highway. All of those are, there's a total of 7 parcels encompassed within those addresses. I wanted to just begin by using this aerial map from Dare County's GIS. May not show up really well, but the yellow lines you see, the thin yellow lines are property lines. So, this right here is a good example right there. What we've got are, as far as the proposal goes, is a part of that a larger effort that the town has been engaging in to correct and clarify areas of the town zoning map where, in an attempt to match zoning district boundaries to existing property lines. And in part of looking at that effort, one of the areas where we noted a number of split zone properties were in this area where the Shoreside Center is located. So what that means is that this was initially a staff-generated effort. So we do not have an application from each of these property owners. But for the record, I certainly do want the council and public to be aware that every one of the property owners and business owners who are leasing those properties have been directly contacted, and I've spoken with each one of them about this proposal, and as well as other alternatives that the planning board had looked at the time they were reviewing this proposal. Those individuals as well, we have treated this as a regular rezoning, so all of the notification that we would typically do was done for this public hearing, such as notifying all, and for the planning board meeting, notifying all the property owners as well as all of the adjacent owners and all that. So everyone with a direct interest in it has been notified of this proposal. With the various subdivisions, lot combinations, zoning amendments, and development occurring over the years, the zoning of these subject properties has become a very complex issue, resulting in a number of the properties being shown as split zoned or improperly zoned on the town's official zoning map. Basically, the intent of what we're looking at tonight would be to rezone these parcels to clarify the zoning so that in the future, when development, redevelopment, or other issues arise, it is clear what each of these parcels is zoned, and the standards can be applied appropriately. So I wanted to begin just real quickly taking a look at each of the parcels. What we've got, and I'll use the aerial map for this purpose because I think it shows better. It begins with the series of out parcels at the front. It does not include McDonald's. That was developed in concert with the Shoreside Center itself. And there are no issues. That's a BC3 zone property. So it begins with these two properties here that are with Gateway Bank. Moves next door there to include BB&T Bank. Property here with Carawan Seafood. And then there's a vacant or undeveloped parcel just to the west of that. And then you have the ABC store, Dare County ABC store in that area. So that was what we originally looked at. As we got into it, we did look at some of the area along the western side of the Shoreside Center property itself as it goes back, coming all the way back along that side. We did note that some of the zoning on the map there was incorrect. So those are the areas it's dealing with. And what I'd like to do is just cover some of the rationale. We can basically break this down into three areas. You have that series of out parcels on the front that I mentioned with Carawan, BB&T, and Gateway, and the undeveloped parcel. All of those properties really fall in the same boat in that at one point the zoning was shown extending all the way back 200 feet in this area, coming all the way back, but for some reason at some point the official zoning map of the town only shows that zoning extending back 100 feet in this area. So we're looking at correcting that by bringing the zoning, that BC1 zoning, all the way back here so that all of those out parcels will be consistently zoned BC1. One thing we are also attempting to accomplish with this is there's a smaller parcel here on the very eastern end of the Gateway Bank property. It is part of that Gateway development owned by Mr. Roughton, who owns that property as well. And because it's to the west of that entrance, it just made sense to include that, even though that was not Zone BC1 even partially originally. Since it functions as part of the Gateway Bank property, it made sense to include that in the proposal, and the property owner has concurred with that. So that's the first area there. What we're looking at there is changing all of the darker blue, the BC3 zoning, to BC1. That's what we're looking at accomplishing there. The second area, and I'll cover this one first because it's the reason we're doing it is similar, occurs on the, what we'll call the Walmart portion of the Shoreside Center property. That would be in all of this area here extending down. It includes a slice back here as well. And just for the record, I will show this, and it doesn't, just because of the scale, you see this large red line going back here. We do have that area. I'm going to put up just a small drawing here, a piece of a site plan that shows that is actually a defined area. It's not just it actually almost looks like a mistake on the map, like we've gone too far, but there is actually an area here that is part of the septic system related to Barrier Island Station. And that area was zoned as part of the PCD BC3 as part of that development. They came back in and had this area rezoned. For whatever reason, it never showed up on the zoning map after that was done. So we're looking at correcting that, as well as all of the records and maps, site plans and such related to the development of the Shoreside Center show this entire strip all the way to the property line being zone BC3. So that's the reason what we're looking at correcting there. The last one has a little bit different rationale, and that's the ABC store up here, property owned by Dare County ABC Commission, or ABC Board. That property, at the time of its development, all of the staff reports, site plan, things like that, all of the official records refer to that property as being zoned commercially. In fact, just from researching records, it certainly appears that it was not. So everybody went through the process, the staff, planning board, council, under that assumption, but certainly upon, looking back on it and researching it, it appears that that was not the case. So the intent of rezoning that is to correct that situation. Right now, there is a non-conforming development, commercial development of that property. The intent is to correct that circumstance, and so that it's the same understanding that everybody was under when it was developed originally. So those are I just kind of lumped those into three categories there. Just a little bit more background. The town's land use plan, and I do have a copy we can pull up if the council does need to reference it specifically. But it does note that all of the areas, all of those properties, except for a portion of the ABC store property, it has them designated as commercial shopping and working areas. So that rezoning to a commercial district would be consistent for those properties. There is a portion of the area along that runs down the western side here. The area within, you've got Dominion Power has an easement, and then there's an easement associated with the Cypress Knee Trail Road that runs back to Barrier Island Station. That area was designated as rights-of-way, easements, canals, ponds, etc. was the category that area fell under. After looking at the proposal and, and understanding what the plan recommended, the planning board, with their review, did make a recommendation, voted unanimously at their meeting on November 14th to recommend approval of these proposed changes, and did note that they felt that the proposed zoning was consistent with that adopted CAMA land use plan, with the intent of that. That's what I have for you as far as my presentation, but certainly be glad to answer any questions the council members may have.
Well, first, I want to thank you for breaking that out the way you did. It certainly makes a complex scenario a little easier for me to understand. In addition to the town trying to correct a split zoning on our map, did I hear you once before talk to the fact that Dare County also wanted us to get our act together, so to speak?
As I mentioned the first time we went through this on some of the properties, that Dare County is seeking to add a zoning layer to their maps, and they certainly, they struggled a little bit when we passed along our zoning information, struggled with locating, the proper location for some of these zoning lines. Certainly for them, it would be much easier if it followed property lines, so they are encouraging the town to do that.
Okay. And previously, when we tried to do this, a problem cropped up, unbeknownst to any of us or the planning board at that point. Have you heard to date anything like that?
No.
Okay.
And we have, again, spoken with every single business and
Right.
property owner along there.
But somebody else out there that's planning to buy or whatever has not come forward, unless
sir.
they do so tonight?
No,
All
sir.
right. Anyone else have a question for Joe?
I just have one.
Sure.
The Cypress Knee Trail part of it, I noticed there are looks like residential lots right beside there. I think I remember reading in the packet that all of the buffer requirements are still satisfied in terms of what's required between the commercial and the residential properties. Is that the case? Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, one of the interesting things about this is that with the zoning not extending all the way over, the buffer requirement is a specific requirement in the BC3 district. It is not a requirement in the BR1 district that the zoning map is incorrectly showing here. So actually moving that over will certainly allow us much clearer enforcement of that buffer, should the need ever arise.
Is it going to cause any problems, I guess is my question.
No, the area is already, as you're probably aware from going along there, it is already kind of set aside for that purpose anyway. There's no development or anything of that nature on there.
Mm-hmm.
There is a fence up there in sections as part of the required buffer at the time. And this would just, again, with the rezoning, it would support the continuation of that buffer between the commercial and the residential.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Lynn, has anyone signed up for the public hearing?
Yes, sir.
Does anyone wish to speak? Mr. Calfee, come forth. Are you going to be the one we didn't hear from?
For the record, my name is Ralph Calfee. I'm here representing Barrier Island Station. One minor subtlety, and that is that the PCD, that's a planned commercial development overlay on the BC3 district. What that PCD is for is to get Barrier Island's traffic and signage and what have you all the way out to the highway. So the PCD overlay needs to cover this short section of Cypress Knee Trail. It's a minor subtlety, but just want to be sure it's noted. And it's something that I've talked with Joe about this, and this is something we can fix when you're doing the actual detail of the new zoning map. and really getting the lines down, the narrow size they're supposed to be, that can be all be fixed. Otherwise, quite frankly, what this thing is really doing, in my opinion, is fixing a bunch of stuff that was either done or not done by people who aren't here to defend themselves, and therefore I recommend that you vote for it.
Thank you very much. All right. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in this public hearing? Let the record show no one else came forward. We'll have a motion, entertain a motion to go back into regular session.
So, second.
Any discussion? All in favor of going back in regular session? Say aye.
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 Opposed? You didn't say anything, so it's an aye.
Yeah, it's an aye.
All right. What does council want to do? Is there any discussion among ourselves?
Well, I'm for approving it.
Nine, two.
Anyone else? All right, do I hear a motion to that effect?
Okay, I move to grant approval to rezone the identified parcels at Shoreside Center per the attached proposed zoning map with the addition that Mr. Calfee brought up in the public hearing. Specifically, the out parcels at 5406, 5416, 5424, 5430, and 5440 North Croatan Highway are to be entirely rezoned Beach Commercial 1. The identified portions of the Walmart property at 5400 North Croatan Highway are to be zoned Community Shopping Center BC3 with a planned commercial district overlay zone, again, as modified by the comment from Mr. Calfee. Town council finds that rezoning the subject properties is consistent with the current use of the subject properties and the majority of the property's designation as a commercial, shopping, and working area on the future land use map in Kitty Hawk's adopted land use plan. The reasons to justify the decision to approve the application include the proposed rezoning will correct a number of mapping errors that have occurred in the Shoreside Center development over time, corrects the split zoning of out parcels, which will resolve any confusion or dispute as to which district standards will apply to future development activities on those parcels, and the proposed rezoning is consistent with the actual use of the subject properties.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it's done. All right, the next thing we have is a public hearing for a text amendment to amend section 42, TAC 360, subpara Charles, subpara 2D, with standards to allow pier length to be measured from furthest Woodward Point of the normal high water mark on any property. Motion, I'm entertaining a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Joe? Bring us up to date, please.
Thank you again, Mayor Perry. As you mentioned, the proposal is a text amendment to amend Section 42-360C2D with standards allowing pier length to be measured from the furthest waterward point of the normal high water mark on a property. Before I really get into this, I did want to just explain how this one came about. It's fairly unique in my experience. But we did have a gentleman who came to our office with a proposal to construct a pier and was told that it would be limited to 100 feet. And after taking some time to sit down and talk through the standards with him, he just offered some opinions and commentary that made an awful lot of sense to me. And I just felt it was worth taking forward to the planning board. And so after some discussion with the board, the board did make a recommendation to to move this proposed text amendment forward to the council for your consideration. But basically, what is being proposed is that rather than having someone, well, let me just talk about the rationale for it, I guess. The intent of this is to discourage a practice that we've had, at least to some extent here in Kitty Hawk, of constructing piers over the longest, the widest portions. Looking at this photograph, it's a good example. You know, no shoreline is perfectly straight unless it's bulkheaded or something like that. But you have these things that go out and come back in, and so there are areas that extend out further than other areas of the shoreline. And our ordinance actually, most people desire to get out as far as they can get with a pier. Almost every pier we've permitted over the almost couple decades we've had the allowance for it has been the maximum length of 100 feet. So clearly, the people who are interested in constructing piers are interested in getting them as far out as they can get them. The way that our ordinance currently works is it encourages them to put that pier, take that measurement from the outermost point, the part that goes furthest into the water, and construct their pier over that point. Because the measurement would begin at the ordinance right now is its high water mark. And it would be measured from there, whereas if it was back here, that might be 15 or 20 feet shorter, that it would extend out into the water. So if they can go out further, many people have taken that opportunity to do that. Our ordinance allows it, and there's nothing improper about doing that. But what the issue that was brought to my attention is that is having some negative consequences. And these are things that we as a staff have noticed, and I've took the opportunity to discuss this with some of the Division of Coastal Management staff, and they agreed that they have noticed a number of things where the piers, if they're built out over, particularly if it's a relatively narrow finger of marsh, but as the pier goes out over it, first of all, you're disturbing that marsh as you're putting in your driving piles in and things like that. And then secondly, and maybe even more importantly, you're shading out that area of marsh. So it's not getting all of the sunlight that it's used to. And what we've seen in the case of this gentleman, he actually had an owner right next door to him who built a pier a little over a year ago, and that the marsh in that area is already retreated somewhere in the neighborhood, just say, probably about 20 feet, it appears. Now, we can't say that that's the sole reason. There may be certainly other factors in that, but it is something that we and the Division of Coastal Management have noticed over time. So what we are attempting to do with this proposal is to encourage property owners, or at least give them the opportunity to, if they choose, to have a pier that goes out the same length as it would if they chose to build it over the long point, but build it over in the narrow point where it disturbs much less of that marsh. And just drew up a little something just to give you, just to really help visualize. Sometimes a picture shows it a lot easier than words can. Pardon me. So under our current ordinance, this is how it might work in this case, where the measurement would begin at this point and extend out 100 feet beyond that. If the owner chose to move it over here and disturb less of the marsh, they would still only get 100 feet out to there, and you can see they're left with a shorter distance out to the, in the water there. So it discourages them from doing, from doing this. Under the proposed standards, this is what would be permitted. So you would take a measurement from that furthest point out 100 feet, and then the owner has the option, they can choose where they actually want to put that pier on their property, and it could go out to that distance. Now, this might be 130 feet from here, from this, now what we're going to refer to as the normal high water mark. But, and going out that way, but in no case would it exceed, it would not permit anybody to build a pier any longer than what they can already do today. And that's one of the key things in this, is that it's not creating a greater allowance, it's just creating an option, an alternative for owners to do something that causes less disturbance to the shoreline. So that's really the intent of it. That's the explanation of it. And as far as the specifics go, the ordinance is proposing just to change some of the language by above the chart we have for pier length. And it would state the maximum length of all marine improvements, including pier or docking facilities, shall be measured from the furthest waterward point of the normal high water mark of the bay or sound adjoining the property. And the marine improvements can be placed in any location along the property and extend out to the established distance. I did want to point out a couple other very minor changes that are a part of this, that I've just explained the main intent of this. Compared to our current ordinance, in the first sentence there, we did change to the word normal high water mark. That's what's used in all of the Division of Coastal Management standards. So we figured it would be a good time to correct that to be consistent with the terminology that they use. The second thing is down in the little chart, the table below that. Currently, the ordinance, the first item there says private pier / docking facility. For clarification, we are proposing to add the word residential in there, because community pier or commercial pier could also be a private pier. So we just felt that helped clarify the intent of the piers that are limited to 100 feet. So did want to get that on the record as well. After reviewing the proposal at its meeting on November 14th, the Planning Board voted unanimously to recommend approval, and the board did find this proposal to be consistent with the town's adopted land use plan. And I'd certainly be glad to answer any questions that the council members might have at this time.
Joe, when you read this just now, you left out or docking facility in its entirety. You did. That is still in there. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So,
I had one change. There was a comment that there's inference, there could be an inference when reading this, that the location of the pier with the current wording could be thought to be in an adjoining sound water because of the use of the word along. Says the marine improvements can be placed in any location along the property. Some people think of along as like alongside. So I'd like to request that the word along be changed to within. And that just clarifies the intent of the ordinance, which of course applies to just a single property, a lot or parcel. So if everyone agrees with that, that's a change that I would like to see made to the wording.
We're still in public hearing, so we'll talk about that in just a few
Okay.
here. I do have a question. The normal high water mark, bay or sound. For the record, how is that measured?
there's a variety, this is the reason we go through this in the training stuff every year. There's a variety of ways that we look at the tides, we look at debris, It is a mark that is determined by your Division of Coastal Management. Ben Alexander and I are both local permit officers here for Kitty Hawk. If an owner disagrees with our determination, we will bring in someone from the Elizabeth City to help with that, locating it. But it's a determination that's made. You're using some of the debris lines. If you have a pier or other kind of structure, you can look at things like barnacles or water line. You can tell where the water line's gone up to. Things like that are all clues. There are different types of vegetation that are associated with it, but all of those things are factors that are used in determining that line.
So it's not the edge of the marsh? The edge of
Not
the
not
marsh-
always. Not as sometimes a marsh can extend in a little further. There may be. It's an interesting process to go through. Like I said.
And it's nothing like the mark that's used, the invisible mark out in the ocean. It's a completely different process.
That's correct. That's correct. Now, it would be somewhat similar, I guess you'd say, to establishing that first line of vegetation on the ocean front. That's a little different than what you're talking about. But,
So how often do you do that? At each application?
yeah. That's
So
something
it's not a static line.
That's correct. It's not a static line. It is subject to change. One of the things you'll see as we were looking at some of the piers, we had done some historical research on the piers that had been permitted in Kitty Hawk. As part of that, we looked in some of them, when you look at the aerial photos today, they appear to be longer than 100 feet. Well, that's because that area has retreated 10 feet, 20 feet over the last decade. So, so that's part of it. It's not a static line. You're correct.
So a pier that's been done years ago, as opposed to someone wanting to do it today, they could wind up with a shorter pier than those of years ago. Because
That's
of the
certainly
retreat.
possible. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Okay, does anyone else have a question for Joe before I call for any comments?
No, sir.
All right. Lynn, is anyone signed up for this public hearing?
Yes, sir.
Does anyone wish to speak at this public hearing? Let the record show, no one came forward. Does anyone have any more questions for Joe before I call for a motion to go back into regular session? All right, I'll entertain a motion to go back in regular session.
So moved.
Do you hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. The only thing I want to add to the discussion, and then you folks can take it from there, is, and it goes along with what Em was stating and what I had asked each of you to look at as far as adjacent property and adjoining property and that sort of thing when I brought it up at the last meeting. And I want for the record to show that the intent of this ordinance is to provide a point of measurement for pier length of an individual lot that is referenced from some place interior to the boundary of subject property, not adjacent to or adjoining any other lot near or far from the lot being measured. And what I'm trying to prevent here by making that statement is this council has been through some periods where we didn't know what history or what the intent was in the past. And trying to be clear on that, I hope, would help someone in the future know that we're talking a pier from a lot measured within that lot and nowhere else. And that's, I wanted to add that to it. So, that'll go in the record in a minute for somebody to hopefully be able to review. What does council want to do with this particular item? You want to pass it tonight?
I can make a motion.
Okay.
I move to adopt the proposed text amendment to subsection 42-360, parentheses C, 2D, allowing pier length to be measured from the furthest waterward point of the normal high water mark on a property. Town council found this amendment to be consistent with the town's adopted Campbell land use plan and in the public interest by allowing property owners greater flexibility in selecting the location for a pier while minimizing environmental harm to coastal marshes.
Em had made one word
Yeah,
recommendation.
and I'll second that, and ask if the change of that one word from along to within is acceptable to council.
With the change that
With
she
the
brought
change.
forth, yeah.
Okay, so you're amending to
Yes, sir.
include that?
Uh-huh.
And your second includes that?
Second,
All right.
yes.
Are we okay, Steve?
Yes.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, you have a measurement. Now we have new business. And before us, we have a coastal planning engineering service agreement. And this agreement should provide some engineering, environmental, and geotechnical services in support of the beach nourishment project, the amount of $619,773. Don?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. As requested, Coastal Planning Engineering submitted the proposal to provide engineering, environmental, and geotechnical services in support of the beach nourishment project. Specifically, this proposal provides services which include permitting, environmental documentation, shoreline change, volume change analysis, beach profile surveys, storm vulnerability analysis, preliminary overtopping analysis, preferred alternative design and engineering report, Bureau of Ocean Energy Management authorization, preliminary geophysical survey, VibraCore survey, design level geophysical survey, cultural resource survey, native beach samples, compatibility analysis, product and report development, and additional VibraCore surveys if they're needed. The total cost of the services is $619,773, which is monies provided by Dare County for the beach nourishment project. The agreement with the county provides $870,000 for this purpose. And we have Mr. Ken Wilson is with us tonight, and from Coastal Planning and Engineering, who can answer any questions from council pertaining to the proposal. Any questions from council?
I do have one with Mr. Wilson. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for getting this to us.
Thanks for having such good weather to come up to.
Stand by.
I don't think it's much warmer in Wilmington right now.
Well, you're not flying, that's a good thing. Okay. The only question I have is, at some point, council is going to have to consider an MSD, municipal service district, and when do we need to consider that? There are certain times, in other words, a fiscal year start is the only time we could actually impose the tax, that sort of thing. Given that you're saying 24 months for this study, I'm really asking you if your opinion of when we should start considering seriously to do an MSD. And I'm thinking maybe not this year, but set it up for next.
Yeah, my understanding is, and you probably want to, talk to council as well about that, but my understanding is that you can't really enter into an MSD within, until you're within 1 year of issuing a contract for the construction. So right now with the schedule that we're on, and we've got a meeting with Dare County and a couple of the towns get together on Wednesday. But it's my understanding, or the schedule that we're moving forward with would construct this project sometime in 2016. So it's potential that you could, issue a contract for the construction maybe early in 2016 to try to start building, as soon as the weather gets good in spring of 2016. So I would agree that, as far as 2014, I don't see it being on the horizon of something that the council would have to take up this year.
All right, that's important for us to know for budgeting and other things.
And what we're going to propose in that meeting on Wednesday is some pretty regular quarterly meetings to get the 3 towns in the county together so that everybody, sees the progress as we go along and nothing's dropped in your lap. So, oh, well, we're gonna go out for contracts next month. Well, where did that come from? So we'll try to keep everybody updated, at least on a quarterly basis. And obviously I'll be in touch with John a lot more frequently than that.
Good. All right, thank you.
Sure.
That's helpful.
Sure.
Council, anyone else have questions? We're
Yeah, I just have one, and that is that, Steve, you've their letter said that all of your concerns were addressed,
They
and
were.
you have confirmed that they were. So,
And this is, we're looking at 24 months, so I think Doc and, well, Doc in particular wanted to push forward faster, but I just don't see that happening.
I think, yeah, I mean, the hope for the county, or the reason that the county's been so willing to help out is that, you know, they want to maximize their cost sharing. So we'll catch you all up to where they are. As far, the other two towns kind of divided their proposals into two different proposals so that we could kind of get going. And so we already have contracts for the engineering and permitting for Kill Double Hills and Duck. But as far as the sand search aspect of it, Duck has approved their portion of the sand search. Kill Double Hills is still, I imagine sometime this week we'll get that contract. So as far as that, you know, everybody's starting to get in line pretty well, so.
Okay. And council does understand that this part of it, the county is upfronted for Kitty Hawk, so we could be caught up. So we're pretty much locked into this one. All right?
Right.
All right, do I hear a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Mayor. I move that the town manager be authorized to enter into a contract with Coastal Planning and Engineering for the purpose of design and permitting services for beach nourishment, marine sand search investigation, and borrow area design for the lump sum price of $619,773.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, sir.
All right, thanks a lot. We're excited to get started.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming. And next we have Albemarle Associates Agreement for Services on a Lillian Street Beach Access Parking Extension. John?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We have an opportunity to apply for a grant as part of the Division of Coastal Management Fast Track Cycle. And in order to make the deadline, which is February 28th of 2014, we need to obtain some information pertaining to this planning and cost estimation for the Lillian Street Beach Access Parking Extension. We feel like that this is a viable project and would be a good grant application, but in order to do that, we have to get Albemarle Associates to prepare some preliminary engineering documents and cost estimates for us so we can apply for the grant. And they had submitted a proposal for $1,150 to do that, to provide us with the information necessary so we can apply for the grant.
And just 2 points to make. The funding for this could come out of our existing Parks and Recreation Fund.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And just because this is a fast grant, doesn't mean that we're out of the running. Should we not get this, there's still the regular CAMA and then the Tourist
Yes,
Bureau
yes.
process. So, but in any case, we would need to have this engineering before we could even do anything. So we'll get that out of the way and then go whichever direction allows us to possibly get funds. All right, council, are we ready to entertain a motion?
I'll recommend a motion. I move that the town manager be authorized to enter into contract with Albemarle and Associates for the purpose of preparing the preliminary plan, cost estimate of permits and bid documents, and cost estimate for construction of the Lillian Street Beach Parking Extension for the lump sum of $1,150.
Do I hear a second?
A second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. All right. Next item is another one for Albemarle and Associates. It's professional services for stormwater management design services. And this would be basically stormwater management on Poseidon and Goosander. John?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Mayor. This is a continuation, I guess you might say, of our stormwater management plan that was completed in February of 2012 with the recommendation for construction of stormwater management facilities between the highways. And as a part of the continuation of the recommendations of the stormwater management plan, it's recommended to proceed with design and preparation of bid documents for the street emergency pumping facility at Poseidon Street and Goosander. The facility will include the installation of a collection sump basin at 3616 Poseidon Street, installation of 890 feet of 12-inch HDPE pipe on Poseidon Street and Goosander, culminating at a pump connection on the east side of NC 12. The estimated cost of the surveys, easement documentation, design, bidding, and construction administration is $8,500. The original estimate of cost of the project was $91,196, and the funding for the project can come from the Powell Bill Fund, which has a present balance of $465,957.
All right, thank you, John. I want to add some things here. First thing I want to say is that we have a sump that we've put in down at Bird Street, and that, according to Willie, when he can get to it during an overwash, works well. From that, we put in a second sump and standpipe system over on Hawk Street. That gives us something on the north end of town, something about center town, and now we need something on the south end of town. So Poseidon Street does several things. One, Poseidon Street would give us the pumping capability with a standpipe that he can get to when there's overwash and perhaps even rainwater flooding in an area that we need coverage. That would give us coverage of the town, so to speak. I wouldn't recommend that we go any further with this standpipe system until we see how it works in an actual event, but this gets us into that where we can at least have the town covered in 3 different places, and we can really see how it goes. The other thing that does is, on the south end of town, we need an easement in order to put a standpipe, whereas on the other ends, we've not had to get an easement. We already own the land. The town owned the land. So part of this project is going to be trying to obtain the easement necessary to put this in. And if we get that, then we're good to go for the future. And that's one of the reasons I asked John to bring this to our attention and try to get this going. I will bring to your attention one other thing, at least for council's benefit. There were 2 plans at Poseidon and Goosander. One of them took in some private property, if we could get the easement for it, a preferred lower level area to do. And then the other alternate basically only needed 1 easement. One needs 2 easements, the other needs 1. We may wind up with only 1 easement. We may not get any easement, so we're gonna have to find out what we can do. And this is not a done deal, all right? And one final point, after Hurricane Sandy, 158 flooded all the way across. So Rabbit Hollow, which is another problem area, flooded. I asked Willie, and by observation, he noted that as he pumped down the Poseidon area, and it come to the road level, Rabbit Hollow continued to be dewatered while he pumped down east of 158, which means there is drainage under the highway. So this will give us several different options in an area we need it. And that's the reason I asked him to bring it to your attention. All right. Council?
Well, I would like to make a motion on this one because I'm always in the water. Although one of the two projects that has not been selected is the one near my house. But that's great. I think what we've done so far and what we plan to do is going to do the most good for the town. But I move that the town manager be authorized to enter into a contract with Albemarle and Associates for the purpose of providing design, bidding, and construction administration services for the Poseidon and Goosander Street Emergency Pumping Facility for the lump sum price of $8,500.
Do I hear a second? Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. You've got your work cut out for you, John. All right. Now we're down to John's report.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I've got a couple items I wanted to bring to the council's attention. First of all, we received a letter from the Insurance Services Office Incorporated. informing the town that we have been recertified for the year 2013, and the town remains in good standing in the CRS for 2014. The CRS recertification means that the town of Kitty Hawk has done everything necessary to maintain its status in the National Flood Insurance Program and maintain its Class 6 insurance rating. It does not mean that the insurance rates won't go up. The rates are set by FEMA, as you all probably know, but it means that Kitty Hawk property owners will continue to receive the same insurance discounts as in previous years. So there's no guarantee that they won't go up, so, but at least we have been recertified, so. The other item I wanted to mention was we recently received a compliment from Mr. Ashton concerning an incident involving his wife. In December of 2013, Mrs. Ashton was walking her dog when she fell and was injured on Lindbergh Avenue. And as a result of that, we had a response from Police Officer Dan Heim, along with EMS and the Kitty Hawk Fire Department. Mrs. Ashton was not able to provide emergency personnel with emergency contact information. As a result of that, Officer Heim was able to receive Mrs. Ashton's cell phone and located Mr. Ashton and proceeded to inform him of the situation of Mrs. Ashton and that she was being transported to the Outer Banks Hospital. And Mr. Ashton wanted to thank the Kitty Hawk Police Department for their prompt service in this regard. So I just wanted to mention that. And that's all the information I have in my report, Mr. Mayor.
Why don't I let you, since that works well with what you were doing, ask John to just get League of Women Voters, put that out so that people in television and the few that we have in our audience will know.
Okay. This is the Flood Insurance Information Program. The League of Women Voters of DARE will be holding an informational program concerning the coming effects of recent legislation on coastal communities' flood insurance costs. This program is open to the public as well as League members. Willow Kelly, Government Affairs Director of the Outer Banks Association of Realtors and the Outer Banks Home Builders Association and President of NC20 will speak on Thursday, January 9th at 7 p.m. in the Kill Devil Hills meeting room at their town hall. Kelly has visited the NC General Assembly and participates in weekly conference calls regarding this issue. According to a recent news article, Kelly believes that changes to the National Flood Insurance Program made by the Biggert Waters Act are going to affect not only our coastal communities, but inland as well. Residents and property owners of Dare County are encouraged to attend this important program. The League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan political organization, encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, I was going to do that, but it seemed to fit within
Okay.
what you were already doing.
All right.
And I can assure you, insurance rates will go up in that category.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Mr. Town Attorney.
Mayor, you'd asked me to update you on the Overton property, and I will tell you that we got in touch with the public administrator, and they have been in the property and gone inside, and it is about what you would expect. It is packed to the gills with junk. They are in the process of trying to find a way to liquidate some of those items. They are hopeful that they might generate enough income to cover the cost of removing it. But that's the best that they expect right now. They certainly haven't been through everything. There is so much stuff in there that you some of it you just can't go through at this point in time. The structures themselves, there's asbestos in there, which presents a problem for any type of demolition or trying to get rid of those properties. And what may happen down the road is probably once they get all the personal property out and everything else, is maybe somebody who would buy the property with the idea that they're going to have to demolish what and take care of what's there, and hopefully generate enough income to pay the expenses that the estate has incurred, including the taxes that are owed to the town and the county. But beyond that, there's probably not much that's going to be realized off of it.
And there's no timetable on how soon this is going to happen?
No, somebody has been in there and looked around, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to do this and what they might be able to do. So I can't give you a timetable because they just don't know. You know, a lot of folks just said, no, we're not interested.
Right. Well, the folks that live around there are certainly interested.
I know they
And
are.
that's the reason I asked for the
And
update.
I wish I could give you better information, but that's the best we have right now.
Thank you. And how about Winks?
Winks, we are in the discovery process with that. That will go on a regular court calendar at some point in time.
Okay, all right. I didn't know if that had gone by the buyer.
No, no. It's moving slowly through the court system
Everything does there, doesn't it?
sometimes.
All right. Comments from town council. Jeff? you
I have nothing.
Craig?
I'd just like to thank the town council members, the town of Kitty Hawk, my recent health issues, phone calls, visits, emails, flowers. It's a great feeling knowing that I have friends like people in this room. I want to thank you.
Glad you're here.
Yeah.
I have nothing.
Kim?
I just have one thing. In the process of going through the changes to the pier issue that we did tonight, I looked through the code to see what was there for that entire chapter. And there's a little bit of cleanup that needs to be done. There are a couple of footnotes that have direction for people to look for a list of certain conditional uses in the town administrative offices, and that list does not exist. So I would like a consensus, if we can get it from council, to have Joe go to the planning board to kind of clean up that bit, probably by just deleting those couple of footnotes to avoid any kind of confusion in the public if they should happen to be interested in finding out what those things are.
If they're not there, they shouldn't be referenced.
Shouldn't be referenced.
That's basically what she's saying. Does everyone agree that
I agree.
Yeah,
it should be looked at?
Sure.
All right. Joe?
make it better.
Make it better, that's right. Anything else in?
That's it.
Okay. I have two things. One, everybody got a note about CAMA land use meeting in Plymouth. Do I hear a volunteer to go? They wanted one elected representative, and they wanted, of course, the planner will go. Does anyone want to go? Don't everybody jump up at once. All right, if nobody wants to go, I'll take this one, but the next one's yours. I'm gonna tell you
Well,
that.
I did tell you in an email that I sent you today that if, I wasn't really planning on attending, but if you wanted me to go, I would go. That was my email to you today. I don't know if you saw
Can
it.
you go?
I can go. At this point, yes.
I'd like for you to do that.
Okay. January the 22nd, was that it? Something like that?
I looked at my calendar as well.
Okay.
It's the 20th something, and I did not see a time onto it. You know, I don't know what time it starts, so we'll figure that out.
Okay,
All right,
all right.
I got a volunteer, how about you?
Well, I said I'd go, and I will.
Well, that's close enough for me. All right, now, here's another thing I want us to look at. And I don't know where this would go, but twice now we've been told that Ridge Road has a narrow spot that creates a problem, a safety issue, basically. It was, the entrance is one width, and then we had the development over on Hickory Ridge, I guess, that widened it out. And in between there is a much more narrow road, and I went and looked at that. And it's a problem for buses, and it's a problem for trash trucks. And now that we have a development back there, it's really a nice development, that increases school bus activity and trash trucks. So what I'd like for us to do is tell John and Joe to look at what it takes, and probably even Willie, because it'll take widening the road to some degree. And I don't know what's involved there. I don't know whether we have easements that we can do it. I'm not interested, and I don't think the rest of council would be interested in taking land to do that. But if we have the wherewithal, the easements in place, or somebody would give them, then we need to know if our POW bill money would actually pay to make that right. Does council agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Can you bring something back to us and let us know what you need from us in order to try to fix something?
I just got a call about that this past week, and I'm supposed to meet the lady out there next week.
Well, now you'll have something to give her.
We've had numerous complaints with that
Okay.
at the planning board.
Let's see what we can do, and staff will get it going. And we've got some POW bill money. We don't want to rob that using all these standpipes and stuff, because we may get overwashed and need to replace roads. But it's there for this kind of thing, and this is a safety issue we need to look at. All right. If no one else has any more comments, I'm going to call for a final public hearing, or public comment. Does anyone wish to speak at this portion of the public comment? Let the record show no one came forward. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We are adjourned.